Yeah, Satish, we are good to go. We can see your screen. Thank you.
Yep. Hi everyone. Hi Parmal. Hi Chen. It's been a long time. Hope you guys are doing good, and thanks for hosting me here. And today we are going to see about a global secure and govern Microsoft Power Platform environments. Obviously, as Parimal said, for the last two sessions, you would have seen more into some sort of development regarding the RPA and the other stuff. Now, this particular topic for the next 1 hour, it's completely going as an, like I'm assuming most of you are the administrators of an enterprise. That's how this content has been built. Basically, going through like in another couple of slides, you will be knowing what you will get out of this session, and after 1 hour, what are all the new things we are going to learn, all these things. Okay, so today what we are going to do, we'll have how we are going to adapt in our organization. Basically, all these things, it is based upon the experience which we have. And as Permal gave an introduction, I work as a solution architect in an enterprise. It's not a service organization like a Cognizant or Infosys. It's a AstraZeneca based upon it is a pharma company, and for that pharma, for that scientists or pharmacists or for the doctors, we as an IT unit enable them or facilitate them to do their work faster, better, accurate, and reliable. So this is what our day-to-day activity. And the same thing is applicable for most of your service companies as well. Like for all the service company, I work for an account called BOFA, I work for an account called Visa, I work for Citibank. So many organizations are even any software developer works for another company with a specific purpose for them, right? Considering that one as an IT unit, as an integral part of the business unit. Whenever I was in an IT company, like whenever I was in a service company, I would rather call it as a service company. I feel that I belongs to Cognizant, I belongs to Infosys, and whoever I works for or whatever the account which I work for, I used to call them I used to treat them as a client. Just like that, it's my work. I'm doing that. I'm doing the development, deliver it, and I'm taking the hands out. But being an integral part, we are responsible for the end-to-end business of a pharma company. The initial stages, it was a bit tough, or I was not able to adapt with that properly. But after slowly, after 6 to 8 months, it took 6 to 8 months for me to transform myself from service industry to the captive unit, or an integral part of the business. So with that, why I'm saying all this information is, today, as a being an integral part of the business, I am supposed to implement I am supposed to implement Power Platform for my organization. And as I said, my organization is not an IT organization. My organization purely focus on the pharma business. So that's what the context I wanted to set. As part of implementing something new, like something a new platform into a pharma company. So, and all of us are very no, like I would say that very familiar that the pharma is more secured than your banking domain. That hope most of us should be understanding. Even I was not aware of this thing, but after joining AstraZeneca, it's been more than 4 years I have been traveling with AstraZeneca. So there I came to know that even in the banking, like as I said, prior to this, when I worked for Cognizant, I was in an account called a City account. I work for Visa account. So there also there are some certain level of security, but when we become the integral part, we were more focused on security, and more focused on governance, how we are any new applications or any new platform when we introduce into an organization, what are all the key steps we need to follow, how we can, like, we are not going to secure the data from our employee. Obviously we give projects to Cognizant, Infosys, or any many more stakeholders are available, right? So how are we going to secure, how, what level of access I need to provide from a developer who is coming from Cognizant, how long I need to give, and when should I revoke back, what level of security, what level of governance I have to. So these are all the questions, and these are all the day-to-day problem statements we solve. And before implementing not only the Power Platform, like at any new technology introducing into an organization, these are all the common questions which which we have to be more careful before implementing anything. From a service industry, it is altogether a different game ball, but from the captive unit, it is altogether the version or the perspective completely changes. That's what I'm spending 2 to 3 minutes for this, to ensure that all of us are on the same page. All right, I'm giving a pass here. Any doubts so far before jumping into the actual session? All of us are on the same page, right? Are we okay with the context? Because I have some more time. Why I'm saying this is I took Feroz gave me 5 more minutes extra, so it's good we have, and we have a lot more to discuss. So after today, after this 1 hour, what you will do, what you will be learning, we will know how to adapt in my organization and how to establish the policies. What are all the policies, and you will understand the tools Microsoft has provided to empower admins and the background to best use them, and to know how to identify your champions and support them. Champions in the sense that there are various stakeholders. I'll tell you who we can call as a power app champion or power platform champion. So here there are a couple of things. First, we need to govern the platform, and second one, we need to grow along with the platform, or grow along with the platform, or develop the platform, whatever it is. So as part of the governance, there are four key things which we need. One is the security, and second one, we need to monitor. Like here you can understand it as a story. See, I'm planning for my security, and then once I implement all my policies, I should be monitoring it whether it works fine, any threats or any anomalies are coming. And then the third one is alert and action. In case any threat or in case any deviation from my policy, I should get an alert, I should get intimated. And then how am I deploying any new apps or any new flows securely, adapting to all this governance. Like, so the first one, implement, decide and implement the policies. The second one, monitor whether it is properly running or not. Third one, get notified if there is any deviation or any anomaly occurs. And then fourth, adhering to all this my policies, how I can deploy my apps into that, into my platform. Like all of you know, right, there is a like Power Platform. I used to call it as a platform, and whatever the applications, either it can be a Power BI report or a Power App or a flow or a virtual chatbot, I call them as an application. Right now, you see the difference between a platform and an application. A platform is a set of components or a set of resource. Using that, you will be able to build an application. An application is an executable which is going to solve a specific problem statement, right? A platform which will give you a holistic set of resources, and application which will, by using that set of resources on top of that platform, you are going to solve a particular business problem, right? So that's the difference between a platform and the application. Now in this course, as I said, I'm not going to talk about anything specific to the application. Always whenever I say that, even I call it as an application or a platform, I refer it as a Power Platform, right? I refer always it as a platform. And as part of grow or the development plan, as everyone knows that we need to nurture what we have done so far, and then we need to a betterment of the infrastructure, and then a betterment of support, like what in case anything goes wrong, what is the support model we have to provide for the users, end users. So now today we are going to focus more on the security. Like I was about to take the entire governance, but it cannot be comprised within an hour. So that's the reason, as part of the governance comprises of four different pillars, and among that four different pillars we will take the most important pillar called security, right? And before jumping to that, all of us, I understand all the 50 plus participants here are familiar with the Power Platform. What is a Power Platform? And I don't want to give any introduction or any background about the Power Platform. I hope so. Everyone might have used, or everyone might have at least developed a few of the apps or the flows, something. But in turn, it is nothing but it is a low code platform that spans Office 365, Azure, and Dynamic 365 and standalone applications. So that's what in every definition you would have seen that it comprises of four different suite of products, and it runs on top of Office 365 and Azure platform. And then there are n number of connectors are there, approximately 700 plus connectors so far till yesterday. And it will all the data will be stored in the dataverse. If you want, you can have a different data sources, and whenever it comes into the Power Platform, we call that data as a dataverse. And so that's the overall introduction about the Power Platform. I don't want to spend much time here. And then the next one, what are all the advantages of that one? So every organization, give me 1 minute, give me a minute. Sorry, thanks, guys. See, every organization, almost what we will do, we will have come up with the backlog items, right? So in this year, I have like last month only, we have completed, like not exactly the first week of February, we completed the plan or the roadmap of 2022. On the roadmap, we will come up with these are all the different problem statements we need to address this year. And on the roadmap discussion, all the business users will be there, right? So along with them, we will discuss and identify the roadmap and identify the items. We will convert those items, or we will log those items as a backlog item, or even a story for it depends on if it is a bigger one, we will create a story. If it is a smaller one, we will consider that as a backlog and create a new project. All those things are a problem, like project management steps. That's a different story. But this Power Platform, it's mainly introduced to automate your day-to-day repetitive actions. For example, the major advantage which I could practically see from Power Platform is, as I said, I every day work with the scientists or doctors or pharmacists, even the lab attendants. Everyone are doing some sort of repetitive task, and for them, instead of doing them on a paper or on a repetitive, if we implement one smaller page, there you can capture all your recordings from the lab, and this will be centralizedly stored, and you can retrieve back, and you can have a look, you can have a better look visible, like better report out of what you are doing over the month. It will be very easy for us to build those kind of application in a day or two, but really it gives a lot of impact over the business, impact over the lab technician, because every day he is spending almost 2 to 3 hours for documenting what he has done on the lab. So if you give a form through which the 3 hours is reduced to 3 minutes or 5 minutes, think about the every week you are saving almost 15 hours, which is equivalent to 2 days of effort, 2 man days of effort. So that is how the Power Platform plays a vital role. And moreover, the second advantage is the third party developer and the primary champions, which I would say the lab. Think of it, Instead of the lab attendant or instead of a doctor to rely on the IT team, like our IT team sits in Chennai and Guadalajara in Mexico, considering the two different time zones and two different parts of the planet. So instead of waiting for at least any user from UK, if he needs something, I should be able to serve them with maximum 4 to 5 hours of delay. And the same thing is applicable if a scientist from UK tries to reach some other support guy or some other IT guy who sits in Guadalajara. Definitely it will be a lag of 6 to 7 hours. He'll respond back once he comes into the ship. So rather, if the end users they themselves were able to create some sort of automatic or like automating automated forms or automated workflows which will help their business, and they don't need really depend on the IT. So those users we call it as power users, right? So that is how these are all the biggest advantages of the power platform. And the statistics which we have taken it from the Gartner, it is nothing but how, like, if I roll out a power platform in my organization, what would be the return on investments over 3 years? Like if for today I'm spending almost, we have 80,000 users, and if I move on to the power platform and apply license for all the 80,000 users, what would be the cost, and how, what would be the benefit which I will get after 3 hours, after 3 years? So those kind of calculations, and it gives a better answers. I don't want to, like, these numbers, it's all facts, and it's been taken from the Gartner website only. But these numbers are very promising, and as an organization we rely on these numbers to take a decision. That's the reason I incorporated this one here. And as I said, based according to Gartner, there are certain players who's having a proper vision and who's having a proper ability to execute in the low code platform area, like low code, no code. I would call it as like this power platform comes under a category of low code and no code, right? Either low code or sometimes 100% no code. So in this category, what are all the different players are there in the market, and how they are able, like before i before I make a decision, let's go with the power platform which is provided by Microsoft, I should be analyzing what other providers are there, and what are how they are, like what sort of vision they have, and what ability they have to achieve that vision. So that if I incorporate power platform, I may need to analyze how Microsoft responds to the support ticket, how many support engineers are available, whether they are available in my India time zone, or whether they are available in the Guadalajara, that is the Mexico time zone. So all these things we will consider before going or before making a decision, right? So that's where, that's the obviously that's the role of solution architect or the enterprise architect. And this one again, there is one more like one more forum from which you can take, and there also the Microsoft stand is almost, they have a stronger strategy and stronger current offerings. So this is where the Microsoft Power Platform resides. And okay, here Power Platform, it's a platform for all the makers. The makers which refer here is whoever is creating a flow, whoever is creating a report, whoever is creating an app. We can call them as makers. The makers can be the citizen developer or the IT administrator or the professional developer. Like citizen developer, who is the, as I said, the power users, like whoever is the end user, and the IT administrator, the guys which like us, who implements or who treats. I never created an app in the Power App, but I monitor or I control the usage of the Power Apps in my organization. But I never even created one of the app, and never I don't even know the difference between a canvas app and the model app. As a professional developer, we have a lot of professional developers who can help us, who can able to create the applications however we want. So these are all the different categories of people who use this particular platform. And then we'll move on to the next one. So another another infrastructure or another interesting numbers before taking the decision. It's around 700% growth in the last year alone. The power app production, like say for example, if I year last year, it's if it is only one app developed, this year it is around seven apps on the same category or the same volume. And it is around 485 billion of API calls happening every month, and almost 12 million Power BI queries processed per hour. So all these numbers are very, 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 very huge. If you see the Power Automate, there are 4 billion Power Automate flows, or the Microsoft flows runs every month. Out of that 4 billion, we are not sure how many of them are really production and how many of them are running every day without anyone's notice. Because many people, what they will do is we will create a lot of flow and we will leave that flow as it is. We don't remember, like during the POC time or during the development time, I will create the flow. Even the name of the flow, if you developers keep, are very fun, like flow 1, flow 2, flow 3, flow 4. Like that, they are keeping it and they do something. And after a week, they will leave the flow, and that flows become like orphaned flows. We can call them as orphaned flows. So out of this 4 billion, almost 1 billion, I assume that 1 billion should be the production ready flows which is running. And considering all these numbers and all these backgrounds, what concerned me, like every day before making a decision, what concerned me? Business data security concerns regarding the connectors. Like for my first concern will be the security, how I'm going to secure my business data. And the second one is environment's health and the setup. Like environment's health is why that becomes more important is the organization like us, we want the applications or the platform to run 24 bar 7, even if any, because we have operations throughout the globe, and there is no sunset for the our company. Like it spreads across around 70 different countries, and the end users are spread from Australia to Alaska. So considering these things, our we want any application, like even not only the power platform, any platform or the any applications, we think in terms of how reliable it is going to be, what is the disaster recovery mechanism, what is the high availability mechanism, how what is the failover plan. All these things we need to be more focused. And the next one is maintenance challenges regarding the app and the flow distribution, how I'm going to maintain like as I said, even in our organization, thousands of app and thousands of flows which might have created and kept orphan, like left orphan. I should not say that it is kept orphan. It is left as orphans. Okay, so who will be cleaning them? Who will do the housekeeping activities? The administrators like us. We should have a mechanism to clean up the unused resources, or to clean up the um, unwanted resources, we can call it as. And similarly, for the for the proper flow, if any changes or any defects needs to be addressed, so that also we need to consider while making a decision. And then security risks regarding the shadow IT, compliance issues regarding the GDPR. As I said, GDPR plays a very, very vital role in our organization, because it's more sensitive, and every information about a patient or a drug, it's very, very sensitive. And the ALM support, application lifecycle management support regarding the apps being created and deployed, staff turnover challenges regarding the apps or flow ownerships. Like as I said, if some of the flow it's been developed by created by a developer, and if he left the organization, it's becoming very, very headache for us. Like the flow will run automatically, but once his account or once his connect account has been disabled in the active directory, all of a sudden the business process gets dropped, because that guy used his account for any of the connector to connect with the database, or to connect with the SharePoint, or to connect with the Office 365 services. So these are all the practical difficulties which we face every day. And what we are who we are talking with talking about, like power apps and the flow makers. this is the primary stakeholder for us, like whoever prior to this kind of low code and no code platform, it was our life was easy as an administrator, because we know whatever the applications or whatever the software which has been developed, it will be done only by the IT team. So the business users will be considered as only the end users. But now what happens, we cannot split the business users, we cannot consider the business users as business users alone. They themselves are creating n number of flows, and they are like they are leaving them orphan, or they are doing some sort of mischievous activities. And what what practical challenges, they are trying to create something, and after some time they were not able to continue. At that time they will raise a ticket and come back to us, and they will need a help from us. So those kind of practical difficulties we face from this Power App and the flow makers. And the next one is application lifecycle management and DevOps users, who like employees taking care of those apps and flows seen as business critical. They set up and supporting environments for development and testing purposes. So this is one sort of one kind of employees we deal with. And the next one is IT department and data protection officers, who they are members of all departments related to a cloud platform service to operate, maintain and secure all platform related services plus surrounding area. This is where exactly our IT department comes into picture. And the next one is support and training engineers, who they are help maintain app support across organization for business critical line of business apps, support nurturing a low code platform by ensuring readiness and community wide shared skills inside an organization. So these are all the different types of people we are dealing with whenever we think of governance. Like I said, why we are keep on discussing about some sort of a people, because to make any decision, people are the primary resource for us to take consider, we would call it as. Because why whenever you impose any of the security or any of the policy, who will restrict first? Whether the platform is going to restrict us, or whether Microsoft is going to tell us something? No, it is our own people who will come up with a lot of resistance. Always when we introduce some sort of security, or if let us assume that you have access or you don't know what to do, but I'm going to implement something and I'm not giving access what you expect, then what will happen to you? Obviously you will get anger, and you will come up with something like, why I don't have an access, why the policy is like that. So that's the reason, before making or before creating any of the security policy, we need to consider about the people, different levels of people and different types of people. Then only we can come up with the proper policies, or proper proper governance model, I would call it as governance model. And so here, according to Gartner, according to Gartner, what is a governance? Governance is a subset of discipline of corporate governance focused on IT and its performance and risk management, right? So I'm not able to define it, this particular terminology, but it's a group by which it enforces certain restrictions for the employees. So then only, even like in the last question, if you see, automatically record the meetings, or even if you trigger a flow, that flow will say who is the organizer of that particular team's meeting. Only the organizer can should be able to record it. And even for in my organization, all the organizers or all the users were not provided with that particular facility, because considering the volume which we have, always the team's recording are stored in your stream, right? Again, you need some sort of that stream is part of your OneDrive space. Every user in our organization were given with 1 TB of space. So if I want to, even if I want to provide that particular feature, I will be reviewing it more than once, like whether this user, if he is more than senior manager or more than an associate director, yes, we can allow them for a recording purpose. And even if tomorrow, because he is going to have a critical meetings with the stakeholders, so for that purpose we want that call to be recorded for the future reference. Say for an engineer, I don't want the engineer to record all his meetings, because unnecessarily it'll occupy his OneDrive space, and after a month he will come back to us and ask for, I don't have, I'm running out of space, could you please increase? We will say that delete all your old recordings, that's it. So that is how the governance works. Right now you got the example of governance, right? With the previous example, a simple teams meeting recording itself, we have a process, we will implement a process based upon the request. We will either approve that request or deny the request. So that is called the governance. And IT demand governance, like as I said, demand governance is also similar, is a process by which organizations ensure the effective evaluation, selection, prioritization, and funding of competing IT investments, oversee their implementation, and exact measurable business benefits. It is business management's responsibility. So IT governance, it is our responsibility as an architect, and IT demand governance, it is by the business management's responsibility. And the supply side governance, there is one more governance called the supply side governance. Supply side governance is concerned with ensuring that the IT organization operates in an effective, efficient, and compliant fashion, and it is primarily a CIO's responsibility. Like Chief Information Officer, what is his responsibility is to ensure that always the IT organization is effective, efficient, and compliant. Like effective and efficient, yes, it has to be for the benefit, but the compliant, it's a major factor in our organization. Even any of the any of the policy changes, it requires a lot of approval and a thought process. And particularly it requires the approval or nothing but the evidence, you can call it as evidence. Even a smaller app deployment in the production, it should go under a change approval board, like we call it as a cab meeting. And on the change approval board, we will ensure that what is this application, what is for this, and what is the purpose, what is the business area, which business problem which solves, and what business area funds this, who is going to maintain this. All this information should be captured. So all these things are combined together, called it as compliant. So like here with the power platform, I can empower anyone to be a maker. A maker is nothing but a Power App champion, as I said. Like earlier, a couple of slides back, we were saying that, right? Power Apps champion, we will see it now. So the Power Apps champion is nothing but whoever is able to create an application. Right. So now the application can be created as from the business user as well as from the IT developer. That's what here the first image, it represents a business user, and the second one, it represents an IT developer. And empower anyone to be a maker. And a maker, it's can be considered as a Power Apps champion. And but also empower admins with full visibility and the tools they need to balance productivity with governance. As I said, if I allow the business users to create their own apps and flows and allow them to deploy those things on the production, then what's the purpose of how can I govern that one? So I should be allowing them to create, but to move to the production, I will have a cap meeting, like a change approval board meeting, and I will have some other mechanisms to ensure that he is not deploying on his own, or he who is responsible for all those metadata informations we will collect. And now how it is practically. As I said, only three important things: secure, monitor, manage. Manage is nothing but the either how you are going to get notified or how you are going to deploy your applications. The first two things are very very important. How are you going to secure your platform? How are you going to monitor your platform? These two things comprises of 90% of your governance. And here today we will focus more on the security area. On the security area, it is set up how we are going to implement security in our platform. Set up Azure AD conditional access, enable the cross-tenant isolation, configure data loss prevention policies, define your environment strategy, manage your users and their security roles, configure email exfiltration, define your data gateway strategy. These are all the different types or different areas which I can implement security. Most being a developer, we would have thought, like before taking up this role, I was a hardcore developer. And at that time, considering that mindset, what I will be doing is I will focus security. In the sense, for me, only thing security means is authentication and authorization. Authentication is nothing but whether this guy, I can allow this guy to log in with my application or not. Authorization is after he logs in, what are all the things he can do. Either he can create or he can modify or he can delete the record. So that is what authentication is, whether he can log in or not. And authorization is what after login, what he can do. So as a developer, I will focus only on these two terminologies. Beyond that, there are a lot more items are there when you come up as an IT pro. And then apart from this, there are certain things, application lifecycle management in the ALM, what are all the things we, but today we are not going to see all those things. We are going to see only one pillar, the security pillar alone. And so that's what it is focused. And with this Power Platform, who are all going to create the application? Who are all going to build the solution for me? The first set of people, it is the business driven people. And what they will do, they are the low barrier for entry for app development, power users in business units close to the problem building solutions for their teams, often with IT oversight or in an approved sandbox. So these, like business, obviously business are the one who funds us, and we cannot be too harsh with them, and we cannot act as a very strict gatekeeper with them. But provided, what we can do is we should guide them, we should allow them to create, but restrict to some extent for moving into the production. That is how I implement the security in my organization. And the IT driven, who can develop the application, who can develop the solution, enables high productivity app development, reduces time to develop and deploy, centrally managed and rolled out. These are all the advantages of using Power Platform from the business driven perspective and the IT driven perspective. And some organizations start with the centralized IT apps and then grow into an organic development. Far more start with organic solutions in business units and grow into a centralized IT COE. And this COE, we will come with, it is a separate topic. I'll discuss, I have a couple of slides to discuss about that COE. We'll discuss soon. And what are all the different portals, important portals for the Power Platform? Obviously, almost all the developers, you would have used the make.powerapps and flow.microsoft.com. But as an administrator for an enterprise organization, my major focus will be the admin.microsoft.com and then the Power Platform Admin Center. So these two portals are very, very important for me to monitor and to implement the security. And now let's focus on the security, how we are going to. I'm giving a pass here. Any questions at a high level so far? Are you guys following me, or I'm going a bit faster, slower?
It's good, Satish. I don't see any issues in that. It's precise and concise. I don't see any issues. It's clear.
Okay, Chen. Thanks. So here, with that with that acknowledgement, I'm moving on to the next slide. So the next one, it is the security. How we are going to implement the security now. See, we have almost six different layers or six different items we can do. Resource level security, connection security and DLP, CDS like a common data services based access control, environments isolation, tenant level access control, and the largest global footprint, like it's entirely on the Azure. So I'll be sharing the slides with Perimal and Chen. You guys can get it and have a detailed look on this levels. The next slide, it's more the same thing, the same information is been translated into a different picture, so that it will be easy for us to understand, and it will come as a layer, the same information, the whatever it is on the black, it's been a bit colorful, that's it. The first level of security, where how we can implement it, is at the tenant access and isolation. Tenant access is nothing but in some of like in some of the organizations, even in our organization, we have two different tenants. One is like az.sharepoint.com, we can call it as, and the second one is az-test or azpoc.sharepoint.com, however it is, whatever. So I'm going to keep two different tenants itself, two different Active Directory itself. And then the next one, inside that tenant, I can have different environments. I can have different, like similar to dev environment, test environment, and the prod, pre-prod, staging, however you want to call those environments, you can, it differs from organization to organization. And then the next level of permission, I can restrict this at the resource level. Resource in the sense, in the Power App, whether a particular user is able to create an application or not. Should I allow a particular group of people to create an app or not? Or should I allow those users only to see the reports? They should not be able to use the Power BI for desktop. They should not be used like Power BI services to publish any of the report. I can restrict those at the resource level. And the next one is the connectors. Like as I said, there are approximately 700 plus connectors are there inside the suite. Out of those connectors, what are all the connectors I can give permission? Even in our organization, we used to give the developers only the connectors for related to the Office 365, related to the SharePoint, nothing like. Apart from that, if they want to connect with the Twitter, or if they even we have a connectors for the Twitter, we have the connectors for the Facebook, whatever it is. But those things we are not giving by default to the all the developers, because there are business cases or there are certain use cases we need to feed, or we need to track our AstraZeneca's Twitter feeds, and based upon that, I'm going to get some insight. So during that kind of a specific business need, based upon the approval from the tower lead, or based upon the proper security and the approval mechanism, we will open that particular connector only to that particular end, like only to that particular developer. What he will do, by using that connector, he will develop that application by using the connectors. So at the connector level, we can restrict the access. And the next one is common data services. Now it is called as a dataverse. It's a bit both the things, you can interchange the name. So CDS and the dataverse, at that level also I can apply the security. And the next one is the on-premises gateway. And on-premises gateway, most of us might have used, most of the developers might have used, because on-prem because on-premises gateway, what almost most of the developers by this time would have familiar with this. It is a gateway, or it is an application which gives a path to connect with your on-prem data resources. On-prem data resources in the sense, it's nothing but an on-prem SQL server or from an Oracle. I want to publish the data in a Power BI. So how I can connect the on-prem SQL or the Oracle through this gateway only, and on that gateway I can apply the security mechanism. So that is how these are all the different layers, like six areas I can apply. I can restrict the users, or like considering this one from the beginning onwards, I'm saying that this one we are going to fight with the employees of our organization. That's how you can relate and you can understand it. As an administrator, I'm going to restrict the usage of the Power Platform resources to my employees. I can call it as why I'm thinking is whether to say that business users or the IT people. So for both of them, as an administrator, I'm going to keep a security level, and to keep that, to restrict them, there are six different places I can restrict. So that's what I'm trying to say. The first point, the tenant access and isolation. So how we are going to do at the tenant level? There are multiple layers to your security. Security begins at the tenant level and then cascades down to the other elements. You would have seen it, right? With regard to the Power Platform, there are security layers for environments, resources, and the common data service. Also, it is important to ensure security across tenants. All organizations conduct business with the partners and peers, and security data across organization is as important as securing the data within the organization. So it's very, very important to secure the data within the organization. So the tenant level, what I can do is I can restrict it at the Azure Active Directory itself using Azure Active Directory session and conditional access policies to manage timeout and access requirements, and use the Azure Active Directory groups to manage share apps and data access. Share the apps with external users with Azure Active Directory B2B collaboration. So these are all the different areas. Like basically what they are trying to do is at the tenant level, by using the Azure Active Directory itself, I should be able to restrict the usage of the Power Platform resources. That's the only thing which I'm trying to. And the next one on the same thing, how are we going to do it? Authentication through Azure Active Directory, need to sign in with your Azure account, and AAD token policies, issuance, and the token references. You can see that. And Azure AD helps secure the citizen developer by protecting against identity compromise, gives the IT admin visibility and control, and offers additional security capabilities for the pro developer. So this is one of the very, very, very important, and I would call it as easiest way of implementing the security, rather going to the Power Platform Admin Center, or rather going into the looking at the every app. Here itself in the Azure tenant or on the Azure AD, I will restrict whether this guy can create an app or not, whether this guy can create an flow or not. So all these things I should be able to give at the Active Directory level itself. And for that, there are three things we can consider: either with a specific user, or with a specific devices, or with the specific locations also. So these are all the different choices which I have. Say for example, I want only the scientist who resides in China should able to create a flow. I don't want the users in any other locations to create it. So those kind of things also we can do it. And the tenant level admin role, who like the major roles are global administrator. Hope all of us might be aware of this one. It has the full administration to all services in tenant, including Power Platform, environment, user license. It's nothing but the global administrator. Most of us might not have this access. And the next one is Power Platform administrator, Dynamics 365 administrator, you can call it as. Like it is only meant for the Power Platform, and then analytics, user security, support, data gateway. So all these things can be managed by like who is the Power Platform administrator. And the third one is the delegated admin. And delegated admin can be used to provide full administration access to Power Platform to guest users using the ISV CSP scenario from the partner center. So these are all like these are all the different types of administrators. We can see that one. And the next one, from the tenant to tenant, the major important the one another major issue I wanted to discuss is, in certain scenario, as an organization, when like if I consider only my tenant, it's very easy for me to manage. But whenever AstraZeneca acquires someone else, but whenever any company is being merged with AstraZeneca, they have their own Active Directory, their own application setup, their own platform setups, governance and security, and we have our own setup, right? So how are we migrating, or how are we merging these two tenants? So the merging of tenants can be done in three ways. Either we can have only the outbound, like whether we can restrict both the outbound and inbound, or else I can only use the allow inbound, allow outbound, allow inbound and outbound. So both the things I can. So this one, it can like my Contaso is a different tenant, and my Fabricam, for example, like always Microsoft uses these words. So the Contaso or tenant is able to establish connections with all the connectors by using all the connectors on the Fabricam tenant. So this is how the tenant level security can also be implemented. And one more other important thing is, I can block any of the connector, like any connectors I can block. So all these things I can do from their particular admin center. Like these things not excuse me, someone can go on mute. Y- so I'm hearing the typing noise. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, by logging in into their corresponding admin centers, we can restrict to connect with those connectors. And the next level we can go is, now we saw the tenant, right? To summarize that one, tenant is by restricting at the Azure Active Directory level, and I can restrict with the three different user, like three different categories. One by using the users or group, devices, and the location. And then the next one, which we saw is, whenever I'm communicating with the two different tenants, I can restrict only for the inbound, only for the outbound, both for the inbound and outbound, and I can restrict with no inbound and no outbound. So those things are the security implementations at the tenant level. Now we can see it as the environment level. As I said, within the same tenant, I can create different environments in the Power Platform. So to create an environment, what we can do is, we can simply go to the Power Platform Admin Center. One minute. So this is where the Power Platform Admin Center resides. And here I will have a default in my local tenant. In my trial tenant, I have only the one environment, the default environment. Here you can go and create a different environments, like a dev, which region and what type I have. So I'm just creating a simple environment called dev, and the configurator, because of it is 1 GB of the data capacity. So I don't have 1 GB of data capacity. What I can do is, let's try with this one. Okay, I'm going to apply cost for this one. I'm not going to create it now in my personal cost, but this is how you can create the environments. So I'm having, in this example, I have dev, test, and the prod environments. And what is the purpose of this environment? Environment are nothing but a containers. You can consider them as containers. As I said, being an administrator, I created a couple of environments. One I named it as dev, one I named it as prod. And for the dev, I give permission to all my developers and all my power users, and I allow them, I ask them to create whatever the flow or the app you want to create. You create it on your dev environment, or that is the only environment I gave access to them, and uh, whenever they log in with their credentials, they will be able to see only that particular environment. And that, and once they complete the development, or once they are fine with what they have developed, they should come back to me and ask for, can we move this to the prod and the prod environment is was exposed to the entire users of AstraZeneca for the as an end user, right? So the dev will be provisioned, or dev will be provided with access for the developers, and once they complete their development, they should raise a request, and based upon that request, we will move that application or move that flow to the production environment. So that's the purpose. Well, you can consider that environment in Power Platform are nothing but the containerization. Right? Here, the actual definition for that one, it is a container in which end users with maker permissions can create and share resources and data. Admin can manage those resources and data and administer users' permissions. So the key facts are, any environment is tied to a geographic location. Hope you would have seen it last slide. There are 7 types of environments. Every tenant has a default environment. The default environment is what we saw here, and security tip, no default environments offer more permission controls. Non-default environment creation can be restricted to specific admin. Non-default and non-developer environments with the CDS can restrict access to specific AAD security groups. So all these things, if you see, like whenever I create along with the CDS, like here I saw create a database. So this is nothing but this is the CDS they are referring with, and these are all the types of environments, and the default types of environments in my tenant, I could see only 4 types of environment. It is a sandbox, trial, production, and trial. Maybe my subscription is what that's what my subscription is allowed to, but the usual types of environments are default, production, sandbox, trial, developer, dataverse for teams, and the support. So these are all the different types of environments you can keep it. And the default environment, we have to think of this default environment. A single default environment is automatically created for each tenant and is shared by all users in the tenant, who are all environment makers. Environment makers are nothing but whoever is allowed to access this environment and create the app. They are called as environment makers. And the key facts are, default is not for the development for critical apps. So this default environment you should not use for any of the critical applications. What is a critical application? What is an important application? We can discuss in the coming slides. And everyone in the tenant can create apps and flows in this environment. So as I said, the default environment, it can be treated as a rough environment. Whoever is having access to that tenant, they will be able to create something here. There is no way to block the assignment of environment maker role assignment or remove it for the default environment. This environment can't be disabled or deleted because it hosts integrations with products like SharePoint and Project. And the security tips, rename the environment to make the purpose of the environment self-explanatory. Configure a data loss policy to control the connectors that can be used by the apps and flows in the default environment. Like we will be seeing, we are going to see that in the data loss policies in the upcoming slides. We will see that one. And strategy for establishing secure environments. How are we? There are like the default environment.
This we
I,
have 9 minutes.
yes, yes,
Okay.
Parma. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We will be covering quickly. So the default environment, this is what we are seeing, and we can create one more environment for the developers, for the critical projects, for the business user, like business developers. So all these things we will be like basically creation of the environments. It is, there is no standard rule for it. It is you're strategically how you are segregating yours, how you are planning to implement. That's what I would say. None of the points, like all we were seeing the six different types of securities, right? None of these are any, doesn't have any thumb rule or the business rule. All of them are only for, only as an administrator, it's up to you, and discuss with the enterprise architect and come up with a strategy roadmap for your organization, and then implement the security. That's the overall plan which we do in our organization, right? So hopefully whatever I discussed today, it might not be used, or it might not be done by every developer, or it might not be done as a day-to-day activity. All these things, are whatever the things which we discussed today, are a strategy level, and it's a one-time activity or a periodical activity. I would call it as, rather it is not a one-time activity, it can be considered as a periodical activity. Every year we will come back and review the security mechanism and monitor. That's where we are monitoring and managing, right? So based upon that, we will take the actions again. It is a continuous improvement process. And like considering the timeline, as Perumal gave a warning, considering the timelines, we will move on to the next one. Like this is one slide which I wanted to, as I said, there are three different types of applications which I would call it as. One is the critical application, and one is the important application, and one is the high productive applications. Like these are all the considerations. And the next one, we will go to the environment security and access control. Where we are, on the slide, if you see, yep, on the second slide, on the second section, right? On the second section, the same thing, the security can be implemented at the environmental level. Environment level, there are two things. While creating an environment, we saw whether we want a database should create it along with your environment, or no database. If it is no database, it can be, again, the access is controlled at the three levels. Either you can control it with like environmental rules, resource permissions, and the CDS. And if it is not, like with the CDS, what we can do is we can have only two levels of permissions. One is the resource permissions, and one is the CDS rules, right? And here, user access, say for example, I want to know a particular user, how he is having, like what level of access he has. So those kind of things, I can go here and have a look on it, how it is. I'll go to the environments, go to a particular environment, go to the settings, and then go to the user permissions and go to the users, and I will be able to see the list of users. So on the list of users, I should be able to see, click here, run the diagnostics. Now I will be knowing in my organization, this guy Arun is his status is enabled, and he is assigned with all sort of licenses, and what are the things he can do. And similarly, the other resource, it is an external user I give access. So the external user status is disabled, and the user is allowed to sign in, but he is not assigned with any of the license. So those kind of things, you can have a look at the environment levels. Environment level, you can restrict the users, groups, and the locations also. And the dataverse, security with dataverse is nothing but security with the CDS. You can consider that both the terminologies are one and the same. And all these things, I request you to go through yourself. And the next one, resource level permissions. The resource level permissions, we saw the tenant access, we saw the environment access, and the resource level permission. Resource level permission, as I said, it is based upon the application level. The first one we saw the tenant level, the second one we saw the environment level, the third one we are going to see at the application level. Resources can be shared in the following modes by the maker: access to co-own components, editor. Like if I create an automate, if I create a flow, that flow I can share with one of my fellow developer, so that even if I leave the organization today, or my account becomes inactive, the other account or the my fellow developer should be able to log into the flow and share it with any other person. Like that, those are all the things at the resource level sharing. And the connectors, the next one are the connectors. So out of the 700 plus connectors, what are all the connectors my organization or the my developers or my power users can use? So that also can be restricted. So whenever I go to the connector, and this connector, whenever I'm adding a new connector, while adding a new connector itself, I should be able to assign that connector. I should be able to assign that connector who or which group of people can use that connectors. So those things we can have it. And the next one is as part of the continuity, the data loss preventions. Data loss preventions, you can have go here, and the policies, data policies, you can create a new policy. While creating a new policy, you will be able to define all the, like, what are all the connectors under this policy can be done, and apply this policy to a particular environment. That is how it goes on. And the next one is tenant and environment policies. As I said, we will create a policy. While creating a policy, we will add the connectors to that policy and assign that policy to a environment. So that is how. And the connectors can be classified into three different things. One is the business connector, non-business connector, and the blocked connectors. So the business connectors are usually, and this classifications is used to isolate all business data from non-business connectors, use the connectors blocking sparingly, leverage environment level granularity, strike the right balance between the production and the productivity. So the because of this, the classification of the connectors has been done. And apply we can apply, as I said, we should be able to apply the policies to the environments. 1 minute, yeah. 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute. Give me a minute. Yeah. DLP policy enforcement, we should be able to enforce the policies at the design time itself, or during the runtime we can enforce. During the design time is nothing but the developer cannot use that particular connector, or he do not able to use that action itself. But on the runtime, the user will be able to create the flow by using those connectors. But during the runtime, it will not allow you to run the flow properly. But as a, like this one, design time is the best way of doing it. And then DLP management interfaces, I'm leaving with all these things. The next one is common data security service. And that's nothing but the dataverse or the CDS security. This is where we are. Like we saw the first four, and then now we are on the fifth one. Quickly we will complete the sixth one also. Here there are like a CDS. Whenever we deal with the CDS, we should consider two things: either the role and the privilege. A role is nothing but a set of privilege, define how different users access different types of records, and contain a set of privileges. The privileges is nothing but whether he can create, he can read, delete, edit. All those things are called the granular level of permission is called as privilege. And these privileges club together and can form a role. Basically, administrator is a role. And what are all the things an administrator can do? So those things are the privileges. Administrator is having the privilege to create, delete, and the contributor is having the privilege to create and read, not the delete. So that's the difference between the role and the privilege. And at the record, as I said, CDS is nothing but a record by record, right? Every record, it can be, the security can be implemented at the entity level or the access level. And the next one, even at the field level also, we can apply the security. And the next one is on-premise data gateway. Like on-premise data gateway is nothing but it is the gateway between your on-premise data sources and the power platform. Not only the power platform, and this on-premise gateway is not only meant for the power platform. One another important thing, this gateway server is meant for any of the Office 365 or the Azure or the Dynamic 365 suite of products to communicate with your on-prem data sources. So in our organization, for example, we have a large, very large gateway server, because most of our applications are the legacy applications are running on, still running on the Oracle and the SQL, and the modern applications we are building on top of the Azure and SharePoint and the Power Platform. All these things we have started leveraging for the last 5 years. But for the last 40 years, our applications were dumped into the SQL and the Oracle only. So to communicate, to establish the connection, we strongly use the on-prem data gateway. And this on-prem data gateway, on this diagram, you can easily uh, envision what I'm trying to say. These are all the cloud service, like the Azure Analysis or Azure Functions, or the Power Platform applications, which is going to get the data from an on-prem SQL or the other data sources or files, or from the on-prem SharePoint. This one is nothing but the on-prem SharePoint. For the connection of online SharePoint, there is no need of gateway. This is for the on-prem SharePoint. So allows a Power Apps and Power Automate to reach on-premise resources for hybrid integration scenario, and then leverages Azure services, and then the gateway server setting up. Okay, so I'm leaving this with the readers. Give me 1 minute. So the capabilities of on-premise gateway, we can create, like, this is where the data gateway is all about. Here you can integrate it with the different and different data sources, and yeah, this is the we are in the end of this one. So what we have done in this module, Parmal, give me 2 minutes, Parmal. I'm winding up. Mm. So in the beginning, we saw what is a Power Platform, what is an organization, what are all the practical difficulties which we are facing in an organization as part of implementing any new platform. What what are all the factors, key factors we need to consider, how to frame the governance policy. So the governance policy comprises of 4 different things: plan and implement your security, manage or monitor, and then get the alerts if anything happens abnormally or anomaly, and then take action, necessary action based upon that one, and deploy your applications. So that is this is what the process which we saw as part of the governance. And for the security, to implement the security, there are 6 levels of security which we can implement. The first level is at the tenant level, and the second one is the environment level, and the third one is the resource level, and the fourth one is the connectors level, and the fifth one is at the CDS level, and the sixth one is at the on-prem gateway, how we are doing it. So for every level of security, how we can do it, what benefit we have it by implementing it, what are all the things we can do on each level of security implementations. We need to know those things, and all these security levels can be clubbed together. It need not be, if I started following the tenant level, I should always follow the tenant level. It is not like that. From the tenant level, I will implement something. From the connector level, I will implement something. So it is the combination. The security implementation of any organization is a combination of all these approaches, I would call it as. So that's the overall thing. Like, I hope for the last 1 hour we learned, this is what we have learned, this is what we have discussed. So thanks for the sponsors, and then I'm having leaving for 2 minutes.